Boo-da-boo-boo. Boo-da-boo-boo-boo. Boo-da-boo-boo-boo. Okay. No, that's not it. Bam! We're live. Hi, it's Sunday morning. We are here again to tackle the fucking thickness of life and to meet it with rock, with explosive amazingness. Because this is Art of Rock. And we are here to bring the rock. That's what we do. But first, a word from our sponsor. Is I'm going to do in a minute as I get my shit together. Hi, my name's Karl, and I just don't. This was every Sunday morning. That's every Sunday morning at this time, which is 9 a.m. LA time. And I always get confused with other timelines because everyone's always fucking changing. Daylight saving. Join us here. Here, goddammit. And we're going to talk about music and fucking life and all sorts of fun stuff. Secondly, this was made possible by Angelspit's Patreon. And many of the Angelspit Patreon supporters are here. These people keep me going. I keep saying this, but my God, thank you guys. Thank you. And I am going to try so hard to keep you guys going too. The big news, is I'm launching like today pre-sales for Angelspit's new single, which is called Don't Know Zero, and it's got Imi from Miss Ballistic fighting it out with me on the microphone, George Bykos from Meteorites, and technically George is still in Angelspit's because I haven't fired him or he didn't quit. And it's Mike's birthday. It's the Liar's birthday before I get... Now, and it's got a B-side so that the single is Don't Know Zero. And Patreon supporters are getting a free copy. But, well, if you've been hanging around for long enough, which most people you have, you get a fucking free copy. And there's a B-side, which is only on this single. And then there's 9 goddamn remixes from Ashley Bad, who's amazing, from Vince, a.k.a. DJ Underminer, who's here with us now. And it's a really good remix. It's very dark. From Planet Damage, who we all know and love, and it's a very dark, driving, kind of a rock trance track from Damage. It's bloody great. Sister Saren, who's a new band, and I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Sister Saren. It's a bloody good electro track. Slighter is from Portland, and they're fucking awesome. Really good remix, that one. Spank the Nun, Eric, we all know Eric. It's typical Spank the Nun, so it's tits awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that I did. Spark Chamber, Randall, who's been around for a million years, and bloody good. It's kind of a driving electro track. Bit rock there, and it's great. Stephen Olaf, who's also a newbie, and it's bloody good electro. And Tommy Trank. I know him as Vanity Police. Tommy Trank is one of the best programmers I have ever met. He is so fucking good, and he gave me this 7-minute kind of trance remix. It's bloody amazing. Tommy's one of the few programmers that I'll go, he's up there with Reese Vorba. He's fucking good. Oh my God, that guy kills me. And the artwork is by LA designer, painter, artist Zizzy Zero. And of course, The Liar has done digital visual treatments to it, as he does Happy Birthday, Mike. And also, that's it. Everything I stand for. Hey, 400 Degrees Below's on. Alison Nicole has just put out their new album. It's available now. It's an EP. Go get it on Bandcamp and watch the video because it's bloody good fun. And yeah, good to see you, 400 Below. Thanks for joining us. And if you want your music non-stop, terrifying and pumping like Norman, I don't know who Norman is, but he pumps. I don't know what that means either. MTV TV. It's bloody great, and it's non-stop, and you guys need to send me stickers because I'm about to send out a bunch of stuff. And I'll buy those. I'll pay you for those stickers. And here's Adam. Welcome, Adam. I'm going to turn everyone's mic on, so don't say fuck. So your mics are on, so please don't say fuck. Don't say fuck. Don't say fuck. Yeah. Did you just say don't fuck yourself?
Oh, fuck.
Don't say fuck. Don't say fuck.
I will try really hard not to say fuck.
Hey, and by the way, one of my videos got flagged by YouTube. Fuck them. Yeah, fuck them. As being adult, not suitable for children, adult content. You know the video that Kino made for... It's got the crows and stuff in it? Yeah. That got flagged. What?
You know who will play it? MTV TV.
Yeah, MTV TV will play it. It got flagged. I couldn't believe it.
It had a naked crow.
And we'll play Bronze Shot's nipples too.
Excellent. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. And it's like, because this, seriously, the track has the concepts aren't heavy. No one's cutting themselves. No one's injecting drugs. This is just my life. There's no boobies, no nudie bits, no hard nudie bits, no one running around in their undies. Nothing at all. It's like, come on. Not even a shot up my skirt.
I think those crows are naked.
No, they're clothed. They're totally clothed. And I was like, you bastards.
Did they have strap-ons though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They're called crowdos. Either only a few got that or a few could be bothered laughing. Okay. Where's that peaking? God, I hate my life. Right, I want to talk about compressors. Julius, I'm going to throw it to you. Ask me that question about compressors. Go.
There is no specific question. I just wondered if anyone could what was the word? Recommend compressors? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Digital, analog, plug-in, whatever you got, and for what you use them best. The ones you recommend, for example, do you use them for whole buses, for whole groups of instruments, or for shaping sounds? Yeah.
Speaking of compression, where's Eric? Eric's not here. Okay, I'm gonna flow the floor open, because I got ideas. I know you guys do as well. So Adam, go, and then Rob, I want to hear from you.
I mean, you guys always hear me pitching Reason, right? But Reason, inside Reason, they have what they call their mastering class compressor, and that is it is like the Swiss Army knife of compressors. You know, it's a simple compressor to use, but you have the knobs. You know, that's one of the things I like about Reason. That said, the rabbit hole that we're running down there, I mean, like what I want to know more about is like what kind of compression you're talking, because like sometimes you'll use compression on a single thing, and like, you know, your Swiss Army knife of a compressor is basically, you know, your threshold, your ratio, your gain, your cutoff time, your attack time. You know, that, you know, you've basically got a handful of settings that are going to occur on every compressor, and they always do the same thing. So sometimes you're going to use that on one particular sound. Sometimes you're going to use it like when you're using it on a bus. What you're trying to do is glue those sounds together into a space together, right? So like a lot of times, like, you know, let's use drums as an example because it's an easy example, right? Like you'll have, you know, your kick drums, you'll have your snare drums, the different layers, that kind of stuff, right? You'll have your hi-hats and your cymbals and all these things. Now you might have some of those things bust off and compressed as well. Like you might take your kick layers and compress those into one sub bus, and your snare layers and can compress those, and your cymbals and compress those, and then you move them all, and then you take all of that and bus it to another thing, and you put a little compression on that, and it glues it all together, right? And so that's kind of your Swiss Army knife compressor. Like that's like, you know, every basic compressor is going to have that. How well it does that, how cleanly it does that, what coloration it gives it, that's where you start to get into all the differences between the different units. Like, you know, some of the old hardware units, it was much more pronounced, I guess, if that makes sense. Like in the DAW world, in the digital world, right? Everything has gotten very clean to the point where now the compressors, like the thing that makes it different is its coloring knob, right? How much noise it adds or how much granularity it adds. You know, and then on the other end, it's like, you know, we were talking, you know, Karl was talking about multi-band compressions. Like multi-band compressors are going to work in a different way than just, you know, your basic compressor. Then you're doing it on multiple frequency layers. You know, you have different compression techniques. Like in mastering compression, you want that bottom up compression, right, and then limiting on the top, right? And limiting is a type of compression, you know, and it's a bottom up compression, whereas like your normal compressor is more of a squeeze it down kind of compression, if that makes sense. And so the different types of compression that you're using are going to depend on the thing. So like some compressors, like the limiters and that kind of stuff, that's all late in the game. Like everything goes under the limiter once you have your mix, right? Because you know, that's the other thing too, is you don't want global compression on stuff when you're doing your mixing. Like it's, you know, totally okay, have your compression on your sub buses and on your channels and all that kind of stuff. Use the compression. That's part of mixing, right? But you don't want to add the global compression on the whole thing. So when, you know, when you have your whole mix, you want to add that little bit more glue, and you want to add that loudness at the end of the mix. That's why everybody's always like, give me the mix at -10 or -6 or something, so that they can add more compression and add more loudness at the end. You know, use those mastering tools like, you know, stereo imaging or exciters maybe, you know, some of that post-process stuff in the mastering process. You have a question, buddy?
Is there a compressor you like to use best? And if yes, for what purpose?
Well, like I said, Reason comes with some really good compressors. I like a lot of the stuff that Waves Audio puts out as well. It's very, very clean, very tidy stuff. It's kind of expensive. All right, yeah, I hear you, buddy. He's asking the question, like, you know, but my point being that that in Reason it does come with a great compressor, but all the compressors work in kind of the same way. So the difference is what, you know, what color they might add or what features.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you, Adam. What you got? That's a nice watch, Adam. What you got,
Thanks,
Alex?
I made it.
It's very good. Alex, go.
I don't have much first-hand impression, but if I may parrot what I read in music magazines, first of all, the compressors in your DAW are pretty good in themselves and usable. The only problem is that they don't, or my problem is that they don't add flavor, like most of the analog compressors used to color the signal a bit, and of course the ones in your DAW usually don't do that. In sorts of brands, I've heard that Fab Filter one, the Fab Filter one is really good. It's Fab Filter, and also I really like the modeling that Softtube did on their modular, and I assume that their compressors are modeled to the same extent. And also there's a hardware one which is called FMR Audio, really nice compressor. It's really cheap, but it's supposed to be really good, and it's an analog one. Post in chats. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, thank you.
I'm after Rob.
Yeah. So my experience with compressors really starts back recording drums and bass, and when not recording, even just playing, there was some great valve-based preamps and amplifiers for the bass guitar back in the day, which had built-in compressors, and those were really kick-ass. They're really warm. They shaped the sound in a unique way that sounded great when it came through the bass bin. Recording those, you would end up with, depending on how you mic'd the bass bin, if you didn't do a line connection but you actually put a microphone in front of the bin or the cabinet, you know, it took care of itself, because I often fed into a computer back in the old days for recording from a mixing desk, and I used compression for the sound that I liked to hear when I was playing, and then I didn't use the compression at all in my computer, in the DAW at all, back in the day. It was all about the sound that I wanted to hear through the cabinet. Drums gets a little bit different, because you've got a lot of issues with drums when you do a very quiet tap on the rim, or you've got a solid thump which reverberates and creates harmonics. Those get out of control, so your dynamic range, if you like, of your instrument when you're recording analog really needs that compression to kind of pull it all into manageable, more manageable range. And that really helps you mix, because you don't have to put as much automation in the DAW. If you use automation, you don't have to do it as much, because the compressor's already taken care of it for you, and that makes your life super easy. You don't have to worry about it so much. These days, I've got a bass rig and a drum rig in my basement, and I've got DBX compressors. Some of those I picked up pretty cheap from a touring band, along with the DSS-1 Korg. He happened to have it leaning against the corner of his shed, and he said, "Oh, do you want this old keyboard?" Sure. But I actually went there to buy cables, patch leads, and compressors from him, and I think I paid $70 and got 2 dual rack mount DBX compressors.
And a DS1.
I paid $175 for the DSS-1.
That's still insanely good. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on.
Yeah, that's all right. But those DBX compressors are great, because they've got built-in gates, which are really good for synth work, because you can use gates to trigger anything. And what I use them for also is I'll split channels from my digital drum kit, and I'll run them through a gate as well, because you can use the kick to trigger stuff, whether it's MIDI or whatever in real time. You can do a lot of cool stuff if I've got a 24 port patch bay in my drum bass rig downstairs, and it's got the 4 compressors. It's got EQ in there as well, because I use EQ like a limiter. I'll set up levels using the EQ and the compressor in series, which is kind of an old school method.
Tell me more about that.
Basically, you're just filtering the wave that's coming through that you want to use to trigger something else. And it's not just about the level that you're filtering as a trigger, you're using bands as well. So it's like a band pass filter, when you just modify your EQ to set the band that you want it to trigger on. You do that in software automatically, you don't even think about it, but it's actually an EQ, and you set up the band that you want to trigger on. But yeah, compressors are good, because you've got the limiter, you've got the trigger or the gate, and the purpose of the compressor itself. Later on, I started using Alesis Nano units for synths. Early 90s, I had the Nano Verb and the Nano compressors, and those are really compact. They're really good quality. They're 18-bit DACs, and they're 2 mono in and stereo out, so you can set it up any way you want. And I use those out of they're actually in my Euro rack. I mounted them in there, so I can have those in series. The only downside about the Alesis Nanos is They are a little bit pricey, and if you do buy one, make sure you test it and turn the knobs, or have somebody turn the knobs for you, because they're a potted, they're a fully enclosed potentiometer for the knob controls, and if those get corrosion inside for any reason, you can't fix them. They will make a kind of noise when you turn them. So great product if you're going to buy them. Just make sure you test them. In terms of the door, most of the stuff that I have that's got a wide dynamic range, like the lead, the Nord lead, it has a wide dynamic range. So does the Kurzweil, and the DSS one has a pretty wide dynamic range as well. So you want to kind of get that goodness and squish it in. Otherwise, you run the risk of peaking out halfway through your track and blowing everything to bits. And running those through a compressor as a safeguard before you run into your studio monitors is always a good idea as well. And being careful about not popping stuff. But those go through. Oh, there's all that shit in my background. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm pointing at things that, don't worry about it. In the rack, in my door itself, I use Arturia. So Arturia's got it's got a FET compressor, it's got a valve compressor, and it's got a VCA 65 compressor. And those are the three that I use in my door. They're good quality. They're very simple to use, but I would normally only use those for vocals, because when I'm recording vocals, I'll run them through my little Mackie desk, and I don't apply any effects on the vocals until it's in the door, and then I'll make a new instance, run a separate bus if you like, run it through a compressor just to get things into line. I typically have a fairly short range that I sing at, but some of the artists that I work with are way up high and way down low, and their vocal technique varies as well. So they may not keep a good distance from the mic, and if they're getting too close and overloading, the amp, they'll start to peak out, and I want to try to manage all of that. I'll usually have to do that in the door, and that's typically where I do have to use automation as well. So that's all from me. Back to him.
Thanks, Rob. Julius, I saw your hand up because I want to have a rave.
Doesn't matter. It's okay.
Okay. The Alesis 3630 compressor is the go-to. It's relatively inexpensive. I believe it's based on the same technology as the Nano compressor. They're everywhere, and you can get them kind of cheap. There's also DBX is bloody good. These are all digital. I'm pretty sure DBX is digital. Yep. And also there's a bass pedal there's a guitar pedal, because I know you've got bass and stuff. It's
the early DBXs are analog.
Yeah. The bass pedal is a Boss. It's a Boss bass pedal or a guitar pedal, and it's a compressor. And it's quite cheap. Anybody who owns one or has experience to it can have a chat after me about it. But the thing about digital compressors is that there's not a lot of character, and if you want a compressor with character, you're going with tubes or analog, and the problem with that is they start getting very expensive. Very expensive. I use a Presonus APC88, and it's 8 compressors in one. It's basically a bank of 8 compressors, and I'll use 3 or 4 of them. I never use all of them. Compressors are really interesting because, and I use this compressor in conjunction with the modular. So in the olden days of rock and roll, what we used to do is compress everything to tape and make sure compression was part of the sound and part of the sound design. So when you had that snare that you really liked, it already had the compression on it. So, and it was already EQ'd. So theoretically, when it came time to mix, mainly what you were doing was volumes and an itty bitty bit of EQing. Compression and everything else should happen. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I've been up since 4. So yeah, that's what's fun about that sort of compression. I find that a lot of software compression, I'm not even going to bother talking about software compression. I don't know enough about it, is why I'm not going to talk about it. The way you judge a good compressor is how accurate and how good it is at its attack time and its release time. And the way you do that is you put an attack on something of about 50 milliseconds, and you bring the compression ratio 10 to 1, and you turn it down. And you should be hearing a click, because all the compressor will let through is a click. And that is going to significantly shape your sound. Obviously, you then bring it up, and you might have 30 milliseconds or 50. It's going to give it an attack, like a hammer hitting something, this attack. And that's going to shape things considerably. Also, I think people need to learn how to use compressors. I think they are one of the most important things. To know how to use a compressor and to know what you're doing with that compressor and to know why you're doing it. Sure, compressors are a very important tool for bringing things down and making sure everything's fitting well, but compressors are also insane as far as shaping a kick drum or shaping a snare or shaping a synthesizer or adding a really powerful envelope, making your hi-hats breathe, or your synth line to, push in up behind your kick drum or something. Also get to know side chaining, like really get to know side chaining, because it's not just side chaining your kick, it's side chaining a whole bunch of other things. In answer to the question, like the vocals to the guitars, that's a thing and the busy things that sit in the range of the vocals, side chain them to the vocals. So when the vocals come up, they come down just 3 dB, just a tip. It's all you need. But it makes a hell of a difference. Yes, I compress the buses, but increasingly I'm trying to compress them less, and I'm trying to do 0 multiband compression, unless it's on the sound itself and it's shaping the sound, because I am increasingly learning that I overcompress. This new album is not overcompressed. It's very, very naturally compressed. That's it. I could rant for hours, but I'm not going to because I'm looking at my hourglass. Isn't it sexy? I bought this for my modular synthesizer. I thought I'm going to buy an hourglass. This is whenever I go on a rant for something, like a synth rant. I set it up for 15 minutes. Because I saw this French chick using a 2500, and she had an hourglass. And she was like an elderly lady on an ARP 2500, and it was the sexiest thing I've ever seen. With an egg timer. How fucking legit is that? Alex, I'm going to shut up now, and the floor is yours.
I have a question. Do you guys put a compressor into another compressor? I've heard that that's a thing, but I don't know why you would do that.
Fuck yeah. Well, we can throw the floor open for people to answer that with their short responses. My response is fuck yeah, I do that. I worked with a producer once who said you can never compress vocals, and I've kind of found that to be true. You might compress it to start with 0 attack time, 4:1 at 6 minus 9 dB, so it's getting fit in there, and then the second compressor has got an attack on it, so it's adding the spike. Attack 4:1 at -9 as well. Thought yes, fuck yeah. If anybody else wants to add a quick thing to that, go.
I'm gonna agree with Karl and say it's not uncommon to stack compression. It depends on if you need it, man. And a lot of times too, like, you'll stack different types of compressors. Again, it's all about coloring that sound. Like, Karl was kind of ranting about the different types of compression, or the different types of compressors, like the different types of circuitry. And each different type of circuitry will add different coloration to the sound. So yes, using them in combination can be very effective when you're sculpting drums, and certainly when you're side chaining. And
side triggering, side gating as well. It's always good fun. Did anybody else want to jump in on Alex's question, or do we want to go to Julius?
I would like to jump in on Alex's question. I certainly did this several times, like using multiple compressors on a song. It always depends on what you use it for, just like Adam said. You can use a compressor as a limiter, for example, and then it absolutely makes sense to have multiple compressors in a row, for example.
Yeah, that's why I've got 2 nano compressors in my Euro rack, because I plug them and route them and reuse them. Same reason.
Bam! Julius, you had your hand up as well. Did you want to forward on into the universe of questions?
Yes, absolutely. I would like to go into some basics briefly of compressors, if that's okay, and if you're not bored. If I were to turn a snare into this smashing hammer, like you said, Karl, which settings would I put on the compressor?
I'll answer that, and then I'm sure other people are going to have questions about that as well. When you respond to these, I ask that you do it in song. So you have to sing it, and if you don't, I'm cutting you off. And then the next set of questions will be interpretive dance. So, if you want to make a snare sound like a hammer, what you gotta do is give it an attack of about 30 milliseconds, maybe 50. Yeah, and then you're gonna give it 4:1 at -12, maybe even 15 dB. Then you're gonna give it a release of maybe 100 milliseconds, 'cause I'm pulling those numbers out of my ass. Right, who's next? Singing it, and if you don't sing it, I'm muting your mic.
I took notes on that, just saying.
Excellent. Anyone else want to sing that response? Because if you don't sing it, I'm muting you. Adam, you want to sing it? You better fucking sing it, because if you don't, I'll mute you. Good, bring it. Sing, go.
Squish that bastard good. Make sure you layer up your sounds and squish the fuck out of them. I agree with Karl. Good, fast attacks and long releases will give your snares life and breath.
That's amazing.
That was great.
Thanks.
Does anybody else want to sing their response?
Crickets.
Okay. Aaron, I see your hand up. You can speak it in black tongue. Go.
Right on. Yes, yes, the Venice, demos, No. I was gonna say, like, I dabble in music. I'm by no means proficient. I could do creepy ambient bullshit, but my main thing would be, like, if you're kind of walking in cold, how do you know whether or not your track needs compression? Like, in other words, is it this lacks definition and this is muddy, or holy fuck, this is really sharp and peaking, or is it a little bit of both to kind of put your finger on whether or not it needs more compression? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think everything needs a compressor. Everything needs a compressor. A compressor needs everything. Everything needs a compressor. So do you. Yeah, I think everything needs a compressor, even if it's ever so slightly, ever so little. Because what compressors do is bring everything up into a ballpark where you can then start mixing. And after your compressor, you might drop the volume post-compressor or sculpting stuff. I actually, when
I was just wondering what the I was just wondering what the telltale signs were. You know, it's like if it's just that gut feeling of like, ah, fuck, that sounds terrible, or it sounds muddy, or stuff's running together. I didn't know if I was off track with that.
No,
or if that's...
I think compress everything. In fact, when I pull stuff into the DAW, when I record it, I compress everything. First thing I do. And the compression I use is minus 8 dB, 3.5, 3 to 1, with a really a zero attack and a really slow decay. So basically everything's getting compressed, everything's getting squished. Because what I'm pulling off has got kind of crazy levels going on, and when I say crazy levels, I'm talking 9 dB difference between a quiet thing and a loud thing, and that's not really a lot. But I need everything to sit there so I can not be fucking around throughout the mix. Even pads. I will even compress pads. So that's what I reckon. Compress everything. And you can do a lot of that stuff. A lot of that stuff's like fixing shit up compression, and your DAW can do that just fine. Adam, I see your hand.
I don't have to sing it this time, though, right?
That's right. Not yet.
Okay, cool. Do I have to do interpretive dancing?
Yes.
All right, so, no, I'm too tired for that, man. I had a show. Yeah, so your question was like, how do you know? And I'm gonna say that your ears tell you, because like so you'll start off with like a, you know, everybody has kind of their own favorite that they start off with. I kind of start off with more of a 2 to 1, probably about 8 decibels or so. You know, 9 decibels sounds good to me, 10 decibels, whatever. You kind of start off with a basic setting, you know, but you want to listen to it without, and then you want to listen to it with, and then you want to start dialing that setting, because what you're looking for is you want to keep the dynamics of it, but you want to get them closer together, if that makes sense. So the part of the reason that you use a compression is that you have, in any given sequence of sounds, some of them are going to be less powerful than others. They're not going to have as much, you know what I mean? And so what a compressor does is it takes that distance and shortens it. So the quieter sounds come up closer to the loudness of the louder sounds. And so you're compressing the dynamic range of that. So instead of it being like this, now it's, if that makes sense, right? But you want to use your ears to maintain the dynamics of it in there. You don't want to lose all the character of a vocal by over compressing emotion, if that makes sense. And so you have to use your ears on that. Say with any instrument. Compressing vocals, the reason that we say compress vocals a lot, compress vocals, is because there is a great deal of dynamic range. Rob was saying before about how people have different qualities of mic control and understanding how that works. You know, getting even an initial vocal, like we all just like start off with some compression, 4 to 1, bam, right on the vocal, right off the bat. And we do that because it is such a dynamic thing. The other thing that you want to listen to is, does the compressor pump? If you can hear the compressor pumping, then you're compressing it too much, right? And it's a hard thing to explain, but you hear it in the air. Does that make sense? Like, you will, yeah. So the thing is sometimes you can use that as a trick also. Like, it's actually not uncommon to use that as a trick in electronic music to get pump, right? I'm not talking about side chaining. I'm talking about just the compressor on something itself, because when you have a gate, there's room in that gate, and so sometimes the sound ends, and you'll hear this kind of sucking sound at the end of it, right? And so you can use that as a trick, but if you hear pumping in the vocals and the compression in the vocals where it's like, then you're over compressing, or like you need to fix your attack and release. Usually you dial back your release and you tighten up your attack a little bit. You know, the other thing too is with attack times, like if you think about the waveform, for each syllable or what have you, right? There's a point in which that syllable has its hardest sound, its most prominent piece of its sound, and with compression, so the attack time is how much time it is from the time that the compressor that your threshold hits your compressor. So any sound that is over your threshold, right, triggers the compressor, and the attack time is how long it takes before it starts doing it, right? So with your consonants, right, you have the you know, those kind of sounds, and if you want those sounds to be compressed, you have to have a very quick attack time, or else it's not going to grab them, right? But you don't want to lose the qualities of the vowel sounds, where the you know, those sounds come later in the thing. So that's where you're balancing your attack and your release to get the dynamic range, so that the hard sounds and the soft sounds are balancing out without pumping. And that's all stuff that you'll hear in your ears.
Thank you, Adam.
I appreciate the response, Adam. I also like to comment on, you said you're too tired for interpretive dance, but you kind of ended up doing interpretive dance with all the hand gestures.
I am gesticulatory.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to throw it to you in a second, Eric. I just want to add to that really quickly by saying I can't hear pumping. I don't know, and I hear a lot of people say that, and some people can, and that's great. The only way I can, I feel, over compression leaves me with a feeling of a feeling. And it makes me feel heavy and depressed. Compression makes me feel depression. Isn't that funny? And that's it makes me feel this heavy, depressed feeling. And also, if I'm mixing something that's too compressed, my ears start hurting, because there's too much volume in that area, that little tiny bandwidth that my ears are dealing with. If the dynamic range is like that, things are jumping, then my ears can deal with it. And that's funny, Eric, is that, you know, when you guys put the Take All the Multiband Compression off your album, instead of mixing one track in a session, I could mix 4 tracks, because it wasn't hurting my ears. I get this fucking ache. I'm going to shut up now. Thank you both very much. Eric, I need you to hit me with your rhythm stick.
Bah! That was a good one. Sorry I'm a little late today. Hello everybody, I'm running late. Grim, I like what Karl said, and Adam, with compression on instruments, you don't need nearly as much as vocals. Vocals are what you need to really work on. I was just gonna add, the way I hear it is I like to play it with the mix all together. And if you have like a keyboard part or something that's getting lost, and it's not, and your EQ is like good, you have different instruments at different hertz and stuff. If it's getting lost, it means it's too low, and it's getting, like, if you're hitting your keys and you can hear some, and some are peaking and some aren't, and you can't hear it, that's when you need compression more. Because like Adam and Karl were saying, you compress the lowest point of a sound and the highest point, and you kind of balance them out. So if you're listening to your song and you can't hear certain notes, then you need compression to bring those notes up. And for me, it always varies on how much you need for what instrument. I don't actually use compression off vocals. I use it a ton. Other instruments, I don't use compression unless I feel they need it.
Blasphemy! Blasphemy, Zook says.
But it all depends on what you're doing too. I mean, I've made some songs where I've compressed most of my instruments. The other thing I would like to add is, if you're compressing your instruments too much, then I recommend just re-recording the instruments, because EQ and compression and limiting and anything that you do that you're adding to the track should be just fixing those little nuances and just kind of balancing it out and making it perfect, quote unquote. And if you're doing compression or even EQ or anything to like totally fix an instrument or a vocal, then a really shit take, and you should just redo it.
Oops.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. You're just like, man, this is really good. Did you do the rest of the instruments around it? And then you have to go back and be like, oh, that's really shit. I need to re-record that whole bass line or something. But yeah, if you're using compression to fix something, like anything else, maybe just re-record it if you can. I mean, if you can't, then it's done. But yeah, so that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. I would like to quiz you sometime some more about your process, because it's very rock and roll, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Karl.
And Adam.
As usual, another. So, yeah, EQing into your compression. EQing is really super important, and when you, like, if you do your compression before you do your EQing, you're going to change your compression. It's a big deal, and compression makes, so if you do like a few decibels of EQing under compression, it's more, you know, it's math it, you know what I mean? I didn't mean to imply that. So one thing I want to say is I don't mean to imply that instruments need more or less compression than vocals. That it's just that we tend to go straight to it because vocals are like really dynamic. You know, that said, in the 80s, the compression on guitars thing was like the sound. You know, you'd run the compression pedal. And then with like the Gallian Kruger amps, and you'd have the compression settings all fucking jacked on those things, and you'd get that really tight like zzz, 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 zzz sound, you know what I'm saying? That really popped out over the, you know, it was a very metal sound, very commercial metal sound, and that it's a shit ton of compression on the guitars to get that sound. Like it's compressing the distortion itself.
Thanks, Adam. That's an interesting question about pre-EQ versus post-EQ. I personally am a pre-EQ guy. Actually, I do both. I do both, and you know, the sucky thing about compression is that it does kill the bass. So you know, you gotta deal with that, and it also seems to bring up the mud as well, the 400s. So I'll and another really interesting question. So if you're gonna EQ, like if you're gonna compress your hi-hats or something high, then you know you want to put a high pass filter, or make sure that the compressor isn't working at compressing stuff that isn't going to be heard. Like, you know, it's not spending all of its time and energy compressing shit that you don't need to have compressed, or it's going to get EQ'd out anyway. So that's my thoughts on life. And anybody who says compression is like chocolate, you got to cover it in everything, and if you don't, something's wrong with you.
Don't forget that your compressor and your EQ are the substance, the circuit for side chaining. So none of that matters for your audio that you're processing. It's just acting as a gate or a trigger to, you know, change the levels on another instrument. So you can affect the audio of something else, or you can just block the channel. Oh, look, there's just me as a little head.
It's a good head.
Yeah, I love good head.
It's thanks, Rob. Did you want to add anything to that? Because there's so much you could keep going on there. Or can I interrupt you?
Don't forget that. Yeah, don't forget that your EQ and your compressor aren't just for your listening. It's also to do things constructively within your mix, to either boost another instrument, or, you know, intermittently change the effect of an instrument as well. So it's not. I agree with Eric that, you know, you want to start with your core sound and get your core sound right. And when I used to play bass, you know, with the full rig, you would want to use the compressor to get that pure, noisy, gravelly sound out of the bass. And I wouldn't use a compressor after that when I'm recording. But the same thing, if you're going to do side chaining, you're going to have a set of gears on the side specifically to boost the level of something else when you're hitting the kick, or whatever you want to use as a gate or a trigger. That's the whole point of using the compressor as a gate as well.
Thank you. And also for side chaining, I don't have any attack. It's 0 attack, and it's usually a kind of a slowish decay as well. Alex, can I just ask you really quickly? You mentioned the Bay City Rollers here.
Yes.
Is that as in the Scottish band, the Bay City Rollers?
No, it's a remix of an old Japanese song, and I really like the arrangement, but it's so overcompressed that I can't listen to it because it's so harsh.
Fucking
and it is really super apparent.
EDM is so harsh compressed. I can't stand it. Like, that's my guy for my mastering guy. It's like he's a rock and roller, so we get along really well. If you guys ever want to laugh, check out the Bay, B-A-Y, City Rollers, R-O-L-L-E-R-S. They're from Scotland, and Rob knows exactly what I'm talking about. They were bloody good songs, but their gimmick was like glam tartan. So it's fucking good. I don't even know if they made it to America, but they were all the rage in Australia. Between them and Skyhooks. You're welcome. Yeah, definitely check out the Bay City Rollers. They're good old fucking 70s triplets.
That's like SATURGAY. Those guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit was huge, dude.
Really?
That shit was huge.
Wow, well, it's funny because I said it and no one had any reaction on their face whatsoever.
Well, I was like, we're talking about the same thing, right? Because that was like, I mean, we were kids.
Yeah.
But that was okay. That was big in the roller skating rinks and that shit. Yeah.
Yes, it's roller skating music, and actually have a listen to the compression on the bass and the drums, the kick and the bass. Man, that fucking 70s bass kick compression was just flippin' Mac. Eric, I saw your
great in that. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you got, Eric?
I was just gonna add quickly, when you said the name, I didn't recognize the name, but then I looked up their pictures and their songs, and I'm like, yeah, I know these guys. I didn't know who they were.
They in fact, they shouldn't call it the haircut a mullet. They should call it a Bay City roller. Hey, that's a wicked Bay City roller, mate. Thanks, you should see my tartan. But it's a great look. It really is. At the time, whatever happened to glam? Really? So does anybody else have a question they want to throw in? And that maybe we should... I think we need to resurrect slap bass. Because slap bass is the tits. And, obviously have someone slapping that bass. But also the old, emulator 2 sample of a slap bass, like Seinfeld slap bass. It's a good thing. It's a fucking good thing. And you can use it as an instrument of darkness.
Just so you know, every track that I do has a slap bass layer in it, and like a sort of regular bass layer, like they're synth, but like there is always a slap bass layer in it, and almost every note has that impulse from the slap, and I mix it with another note so that it doesn't always just sound like that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
Seinfeld. Yeah. But slap bass is bloody awesome. I want to hear more slap on the fucking dance floor.
That's actually why I use it, because when you mix it with the kick drums, it stands up on it and gives it pump.
Yeah. Go that slap. Oh yeah. So that didn't go far. Does anybody else have a question they want to throw out? Like the baby in the bathwater. Adam.
I don't have a question so much as a statement that you asked what happened to Glam Rock, and my answer to that is that if you listen to the introduction of Smells Like Teen Spirit, if you listen very, very closely in the background, you can hear the death of 1,000 glam bands. And they're all screaming.
Really? I think that the correct answer is nothing happened to Glam Rock. It all happened to you. Because I think we need some glam. Grim, what do you got?
So So yeah, I'm gonna jump the tracks a little bit, but I don't know. I thought I fielded the question just because there's so many different takes on it here, and this is high and to the right. But I would want to talk, like, if you guys are game, talk about album concepts and whether or not you think like you use an album idea as an anchor or a starting point, or if that comes later in the process, or if you divide everything into like compartmentalize everything, but then eventually you just string it all into an album. Like, what is your, I guess, album naming / concept? You know what I mean? Like constructing an album, if y'all are game. So, because I'm thinking about doing shit like that for Grim, and more specifically, Wicked Stories from the Deadlands, which would be more, I think, could be pulled together in an album. But I was going to see what everybody's approach is just on the album creating process, concept, wire to wire.
I'm going to go after Julius. That's such a great question. Julius, go.
It is. Album conception can be a great thing if you do it right, in my opinion. And if you know how to write music, like have consistency in your music. Speaking of myself, I don't have it yet because I'm pretty much of a newcomer. So I'm glad to put together an album anyway, if you know what I mean, with no specific concept. So yeah, but I would like to do one day. Absolutely, it's a cool thing.
I'm just going to jump in. Okay, for you, Grim.
This needs to be interpretive dance now, Karl. This is your favorite topic.
So your stuff already is very concept oriented. Like it's a concept. Speaking of cats, hold on a minute. Yeah, it's totally a concept, and that concept is feeding the music. It's feeding the artwork. It's feeding everything for you. So I think your concept is so strong. Grim is funny red tape in hell, and Wicked Stories is not funny at all. Hell. You've got two, great concepts, and they're both suggesting, they're both totally suggesting stuff. I love concept. I love concept albums, and I love a technological concept as well. Interesting, if I dare rant about the new album Diesel Priest, which hopefully releases mid-December, and the Kickstarter is soon. Because there is so much going on, and because so many elements went into that album, I'm struggling tying it down to one concept. Because normally I will go, here is a concept, this concept is this, but because so much happened within me, within my life, and within the world. Somebody once said my lyrics were tropes. A fucking trope. I was so offended. Like, I spend so much fucking time on my lyrics, talking to people, gathering information, researching. I'm sorry, is Black Lives Matter a trope? Cunt. Fuck off. Anyway, yeah, because so much has gone on in the world, and what's different about this album now is that normally I will take songs that were written 6 months ago and 18 months ago and release that. With this one, it's from there to here. So the song that actually drops on Angelspit's Patreon is Don't Know Zero, but it's a different version of it. So only you guys are going to get to hear that version. But obviously you'll get to hear the single as well.
Can you explain the concept for Diesel Priest for people who are going to remix your tracks?
So the concept of Diesel Priest is it's not Mad Max, because everyone goes, Mad Max. It's not. It's the concept of a cult that is completely out of control. And it is a concept where the cult figure is everybody has got a little tiny drop of evil in them, all of us do. And if you can imagine getting that evil out and anointing this character's head, and this character's been inspired by the Aztec priests that were human sacrifice priests, that it's corporate, it's world corporate, it's greed, it's all of these things being dripped on, anointed with that drop of evil that's in everyone. Because all of this horrible shit that's going on right now, somehow on a massive psychic level, we are all contributing to that. It's our garbage and it's our junk. And yet also that positivity and that pure light, we are also working to heal it. So Diesel Priest is really looking at the concept of this is Jonestown out of control. This is Jonestown, and it's not just this small place, it's now global, and it's not just a mass suicide, it's a mass suicide of the psyche, it's a mass suicide of everything. It's this destruction of the human nature, and because it is greed, etc., that stops people from making connections, and instead of helping somebody, people just want to name drop. So that's the idea. But how I'm formulating that into a press release so people can understand, I have no fucking idea. And musically, that is the interpretation. Musically is that fuck, I just don't know anymore. I'm so angry, all I can do is scream. And because you guys have all heard these tracks already, they've already been on Patreon, and yeah, that's it. It's just this salad of hate, and anger and confusion and frustration, but I'm trying to present it as positively as I can. The next album,
it's a reflection on
yeah
yeah,
for
or
sure,
a commentary on.
Yeah,
I think that's your opening segue.
I like that.
So, yeah, because it is. Yeah, you start to go deep on stuff like that. People are like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, yeah. Are you? No, I'm not okay. Yeah. You're not okay
No,
either.
fuck
Shit's
no.
not okay.
And you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that, actually. I like that. I'm not okay. You shouldn't be either. That's good. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that. Well, I want to do a thing one time when we talk about press releases, because it's the most boring fucking thing, but you've got to do it. As soon as I said that, everyone went, I want to talk about synthesizers and compression. I do too. But without a press release.
I think that ties in. That ties into the album, though, because people want that elevator pitch,
Yeah.
So what is that? You recommend a movie, you recommend an album, I recommend my show. Like I was just at the convention this weekend, and I needed a holy shit, truncated, this is my show. I can't go deep into the, I can't go way down the track and talk about all these different characters and all of their issues. No, it's just short, concise. You got to land on what the hell is that all about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's that, though.
And that's why a concept is so awesome, because if you've already got a concept, then you've already got the elevator pitch. Like you've got the tweet version, and then you've got the rant version, like the short press release and the long press release. And these are so important, and so many press releases don't fucking talk about this shit. They don't, because when somebody puts your thing on their website, they don't want to go, oh, blah, blah, blah's got a new album. That's it. They want to go, blah, blah, blah's got a new album, where they're dealing with, where they're walking us through hell and all of the different concepts of hell. That's interesting. I'm not going to bore you with the new album. I want to talk about yours. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, it's a good phraseology. Like elevator pitch is designed to where literally, if you were to step into the elevator with, I don't know, some studio exec or somebody that you think is, willing to want to listen to or support your idea, you just come up with a truncated version of, this is what I do, this is what it's about, and it's very succinct and it's very short. So that way, it's a make or breaker. This is an album about ABC, and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing to land on, or at least kind of center your thoughts on.
Yeah.
If I were to explain this to somebody in 30 seconds, is it cohesive? Does it make sense? Or am I rambling?
Yeah, that
That's all I got.
Really good, Aaron. And I'll also say, remember that when you send your press release to the press, there's not many of them around anymore. They're going to just copy and paste. Eric's new album is exploring rock and roll and budgies that bring destruction or something, whatever that cool, catchy...
Budgies and gaffer tape.
Budgies and gaffer tape. That's good. I like that. So, and that's why it's really important to work on a press release, and now we're talking about press releases. But that does feed from the concept of your concept, because this is interesting to people. People go, oh, cool. Oh, cool, they're doing this thing now. So, ta-da, and when the artwork and everything else matches that thing, it sparks people's imagination. People are asleep, and our job is to wake them up. I'm speaking artists of the world. And concept and fantasy and all that shit's great. I'm going to shut up now. Adam, go.
Yeah, so Karl, as you're talking about the concept of your record there, man, I'm thinking that sounds like a pretty good short story to me. Like, you know, you kind of drawn a lot of elements there out of, it sounds to me like kind of cultural references, kind of like Jonestown, that kind of, like you could like write a short story, and that's, oh, hi, Shea, your first cut, encapsulate your concept that way. I mean, you're writing a story with the lyrics. You could adapt it that way. Are we still talking about concepts?
Yes.
Like how concepts are. Okay, so in my case, man, I didn't come at my record with a concept, and like I ended up, like, after I put the record out, I decided that the name of the record was now going to be the name of my project. And it's really just because it describes what it is. Like, there are songs that have been bouncing around in my head for a really long time, and I'm finally letting them out. That's why it's the skeleton closet. It's my past. It's all the things that I've kept in my skeleton closet. It's the skeletons that I've kept in my closet for a really long time, that I've had the bones there for, that I didn't have the way to flesh out, because as I had to learn enough to be able to write my songs, right? And so that's why it's the skeleton closet. So there's my elevator pitch for that. It wasn't intended to be a concept. That said, when I was working on the record, I was kind of like, okay, no angry songs on this record, right? Because some of my songs are like this kind of thing, and some of the stuff that's bouncing around in my head is like, I don't know, angry shit. So I decided, well, this project is not angry. This is the new romantic, heartbreaking, ups and downs of, relationship, life kind of things, meant to be kind of a Depeche Mode record, if you will. But like, so any time that you're working on something, it's like, like the way I'm thinking about what Karl was saying is like, okay, all this stuff is going on in the world right now, and it's coming out in my music in this way right now, right? And so I'm like, yeah, write that down, man. That's your story right now. My story is like, I took this long time, and this is my processing. This is me working my own shit out through the process of poetry and music. These are the skeletons in my closet, right? So you kind of have to find the groove that works with the thing that you're working on, and let it inform. I'm gonna say this too, like talking about names, like Angelspit as a name has always super impressed me, because I feel like it's a concept within itself.
I stole it, but go ahead.
I know, but like it's a fantastic concept, and it's just like, you know, and you've always really encapsulated it well with your imaging and your branding and your iconography. And so everything that you do under that Angelspit brand carries that concept like right through the core of it. And I think that as artists we do kind of choose our monikers in this way, if that makes sense. Like, you know, we are trying to present something of ourselves in a concept when we title our projects, right? And I'm gonna say this, like, what's in a name, right? Like, ask Tina Turner, what's in a name, right? Diana's laughing because we've run down this one, but like, you watch that documentary from like the 90s or whatever, and the whole thing, she's in court, you know, getting the divorce from Ike after suffering his abuse for so long, and he's like, you can't have nothing, and she's like, all I want is my name, right? And she stayed being Tina Turner, right? He didn't want to let her be Tina Turner, right? She was like, all I want is my name, because she was so well known in culture that she knew that if she changed her name, she would have a hard time surviving, but if she kept her name, she would survive. So what's in a name, you know? And when we were youths and we were looking for something off the radio, the things that we were gravitating towards were like the really cool album covers that were like, that's fucking neat. Like, whatever is on this record, I'm probably gonna like it because the art on the cover resonates with something in my aesthetic, right? It's the same thing with the names, right? It's like, you know, you see a name like The Damned and you're like, fuck yeah, man, because I'm one of you. You know what I mean? You see a name like Angelspit and you're like, I know what it feels like to be Angelspit. You know, or to be spat on by angels at the very least. You know what I mean? And so it's like you connect with these concepts, and a lot of the bands that I think have gotten popular, like, you know, a lot of it kind of had, like, how do you get noticed is your branding, you know, and a lot of that has to do with your name and what it means to people when they see it. And there are definitely some exceptions, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of bands that have kind of hit that legendary status have a concept, an interesting concept in their name. I mean, think about Led Zeppelin, man. Like, what the hell is a Led Zeppelin, and how come that's so cool, you know? But it does. It conjures up this great mental image of like futility, useless, like a Clockwork Orange. You know what I'm saying? It's a great name, and I think it really lends to the legendary status. You know, I think there's a lot of artists. Black Sabbath, right? Like, Angelspit falls into that category. By the way, kudos.
Thank you. Can I rant? So, here is an interesting thought, because I do want to push on. I just want to touch on. I want to get that. I don't want to touch on press releases because it's boring. So there is a concept that I'm sort of all about, which is the idea that a name. Yeah, man, I agree with you, and I'm not disagreeing you, and I'm not throwing away everything you just said. It's a very valid point. I have seen a lot of situations where the name becomes just something that you attach the meaning to. And you can call your band or whatever pretty much anything, but if you attach meaning to that through your videos and your musics and blah, 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 that's the strength of it. And so it comes down to concept, and it comes down to you continually hitting that concept. And yes, if your band is an amazing band name, because my God, I've seen so many bands that never do anything because we can't come up with a band name and we can't agree on a band name. That's my thoughts, is that, but you know, I see I see a whole bunch of cool shit going on. Alex, I see your hand.
I was just waving Vincent goodbye.
Oh, Vince is going. Bye, Vince. Thanks for a remix. You're the fucking prince of darkness. Vince! Go ahead.
Sometimes you can just call something what it is, and it works. And there is a band on YouTube who are very simple at what they do, and they are called Clowncore. And they're hardcore clowns that drive around in a car playing heavy metal. And it works. It works for me because I'm twisted and fucked in the head. So that whatever they do, it works for me, and it is what it is. If I read Clowncore, it's going to be some weird kinky porn, or it's going to be hardcore clowning, and it's the latter for now. But
For now.
But you know, it's something, you know, really pleasing about it. It's like going to the fast food chain where they make everything out of plastic and chemicals, and you know that it's always going to taste like plastic and chemicals because that's how it's advertised. And if I go and watch Clowncore, I'm never disappointed with the next video that they put out because it's Clowncore. It's always hardcore clowns. And in a twisted sense, that label and that title is exactly who they are. And there's nothing more to it. You know, in that regard, I really love it because it's simple, it's effective, there's no beating around the bush, it is what it is.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Rob. So there's a motel in Amsterdam, which is the worst backpackers motel in Europe. Of course, it's in Amsterdam, and they couldn't get any business, and they couldn't be fucked cleaning up. So they got this London PR firm to help them. And so what they did is they put a plastic dog shit on one of the carpets, and they put a little sticker, like a little thing on it that said, "Now with 20% more dog shit." And their whole thing is, and it worked, because their whole thing is, it's a fucking shithole. So people want to go there because it's the worst backpackers in Europe. I stayed there. It's like the Clown Motel in Tudor, which is right next to Area 51. So when you're in Area 51, remember to stay at the Clown Motel because it's haunted by fucking clown poltergeists. Poltergeists are bad. Clown poltergeists. Does it get grim? You need to do a concept album on clown poltergeist. You need a clown poltergeist. Like, that's not funny. And that's his call sign is, "That's not funny, man." Which reminds me about the two monsters who were talking.
Scary as shit, man.
It would be.
You're like in the shower, and all of a sudden, just like squeaking horns and shit.
I've got a friend who's got a clown phobia, and you can't. Yeah, no, it's real, and you can't walk behind them and go because they go, fuck.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That's entertaining.
It is. Two monsters were talking. This is a true story. Two monsters. They were cannibals. They were talking. Dave and Mick, good friends of mine, but they're cannibals. I'm close to them, but not too close. Yes, I see your hand, Grim. They were talking once about different, people they've tasted. And, have you ever had an accountant? Yeah, they're just fully fat because they sit on their ass all day. And what about hippie? I like eating hippies because they're grain. They're like natural, free-roaming hippies. What about clowns? I don't like clowns. They taste funny. So, Grim, what do you got?
It's funny every time.
I know.
Oh shit. Somebody
20% more shit.
About that.
Go.
So, yeah, I was just gonna circle back about the thing that you hate the most, but what do you think a lot of the success is for a good press release? Would it just be that succinct
20% more
sharp,
dog shit?
like nail the verbiage and then send it off type deal? Because I mean, they're gonna do whatever the fuck they want with it, but if it's a copy paste scenario,
it's copy and paste.
You may. So the odds are ever in your favor.
Yeah. So,
right?
Well, yeah. This is what I was trying to say is that, except for the clowns eating people, cannibals eating clowns because they taste funny. The because that was just me being a dickhead. The thing about a press release is every press release I've had success with is this is Angelspit's Cyberpunk album. Oh, Cyberpunk hashtag. What's that all about? And like for example, Black Dog Bite was the concept behind Black Dog Bite was I am now fucking around with technology from 1988 to 1991. Boom. And I am a fucking good time. And I am going back and using that technology specifically of the cyberpunk era. And of course, some people had to say, it doesn't sound cyberpunk to me. But when cyberpunk and industrial was happening, there was no clearly defined genre. Happens in hindsight. Quote me on that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was about to say, because it's of an era that's like film soundtracked and just wild, experimental, sounds from Blade Runner and shit like that. It's like, it gets categorized later, but they didn't make this going, this is going to be fucking cyberpunk.
Exactly, because they didn't know what it was. And there was nothing cool, vintage, and authentic by powering up the S950 and the Emax, because that's all they had. And no one had modular synths. Unless you were Dia to Dopefer. Thanks, Dia to Dopefer. Anyway, so my thing is... Good on ya. But mine's cooler. No, yours is very cool. And I'm being a dick, I apologize. So, having a press release that has got catchy words in it is really important. And you just have to think from the perspective of somebody who works for press and is looking for catchy words. Look at press releases by bands who you admire or don't admire. And when you read them there, bam, bam, so much excitement. I'm excited about this. Wow, it's awesome. I'm using words like mayhem and destruction and distortion and kaboom. And all of these words that are exciting, exciting things. Because that's what a press release is. 20% more dog shit is the greatest fucking press release ever. It's great. It's really, really good. We should use that. Yeah.
It's kind of like when Hardcore Pong was coming out and you had the anti-campaign.
Yeah.
That was just everybody throwing their hat in the ringer, just being like, "What?
They suck."
No,
yeah.
No. Yeah.
And I will stand by that. The Kickstarter video for Hardcore Pong is the greatest fucking video ever. It's so good. And you should Google that shit if you haven't seen it, because it's so fucking funny. Where we bit the Matrix and computer games, war games, and I look good in a fucking wig.
Oh, and Brian with the snort, with the chortle,
Yeah.
He's like, it's not. This is just a computer.
But it's line for line. It's line for line. Like it's shot for shot. You can line the two up. I digress. Vince, Alex, hit me with your rhythm stick.
Yeah, I have another question regarding press releases. Who do you send them usually to? Not specific outlets, but what are the kinds of people you send them to?
I will send mine. I have a database of about 170, 200 press people. 200. And the problem with press releases okay, so what you're supposed to do is send them to a press agent. And that press agent is then going to send it to the world. But here's a problem. One, it's expensive. I personally think it's a bullshit price, because it's like the gatekeeper saying, I've got something you want, and if you don't give it to me the money, I'm not going to do it. And all I have to do is copy and paste this onto something and send it, and I'm going to charge you $200. Fuck off. Because that's what they do. The thing about, I'm on a rant, the thing about a press release and sending shit to press is that press ain't going to touch it. And increasingly press ain't going to touch it because there's less and less and less press. And because the market and everything is shrieking so much, they need more. So, as in, it's got to be a big fucking band that's going to make people want to click on their website or buy their fucking magazine. For those who have magazines left anymore, this isn't helping you at all. I have a press crew, and I send it out to my press crew. And if you guys ever have something, let me know, because you're my patrons and you look after me, and I'll look after you too. I'll send something out. But it's got to be good. It's got to be fucking good. It's got to have bam, bam, bam excitement in it and all that shit. And if you're marketed at Germany, you might want to have an English version and a German version. Until you have that in place, I would suggest writing your press release, your elevator pitch press release is your Twitter. That's your Twitter splurge. And the same with your thank you. It's the same with, this is what you use to pimp the product, to pimp the thing you're selling, is our press release. Because when the thing is coming out, you've got to put wham bam bam excitement into it, and I think I need to fucking work on that, because when you work on an album for like fucking 18 months, it's then really hard to say, oh, I'm so excited about this album, when you're totally exhausted. So it's good to bounce ideas off people.
Doesn't an album actually exist anymore? It's kind of like concerts. They're migrating to something else, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is it more of about a stream now and not an album? Is the stream the new album?
This isn't really. That's an interesting idea, and that's an interesting conversation, which we might get to today, although we have half an hour left, although this is the sort of thing that could go for days. And I do appreciate, no, seriously, this is something really interesting. Like, is it even worth releasing an album anymore? Is it really worth releasing an EP anymore? Should I just be doing singles, or an A-side and a B-side and a bunch of remixes?
What's Karl's thought on that?
Karl's thought on that is, I see 3 hands up, so I'll be quick. I still think albums are strong because, and I'm talking about money, and I don't like talking about money. You can kickstart an album. You can kickstart an EP, but not really, and you can't kickstart a single. But you can kickstart an album. You can do a launch and jump up and down and beat the drums for an album. I am increasingly learning that the whole rock and roll ethos of single, album, tour. Boom, boom, boom. Single, album, tour. And when the album comes out, a month later there's another single. And when you're on tour, at least one more single is coming out with a video is coming out during that tour. Is absolutely right. It stands up. It is,
and then tour, and then merch.
Yes, and obviously each time you put out a single, there's a T-shirt to go with it. Because, okay, so I'm gonna talk about money. I'm really shy about talking about money. The mastering on this new album. On the CD, the single that I'm putting out, came to about $100, and luckily a bunch of the other artists self-mastered. I don't like self-mastering. I'm really against it, as you guys know. But when I've got 9 people on that, I originally only wanted 2, but like 100 people said, "Hey man, I want to remix your shit," and it's like, I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to deny an artist an opportunity to get exposure to my audience. I can't afford to master 11 tracks. I can afford to master 4. So I mastered 4. It was about $100. The hiring Zizzy, who did the artwork, was about $100, $100 and a bit bucks, plus a bit of back scratching. That's $200. And there was, printing the T-shirts is going to cost another $200 because it's a real small limited run. So now that's about $400. If I'm selling this single on Bandcamp for $5, because I don't want to be charging people $8 for a whole bunch of remixes, and they're fucking good remixes, but I just feel weird about that. That's why I did the T-shirts, is because the total that I can sell the T-shirts for is going to be covering the cost of this. That my reality is I have to break even and a little bit more, which is why I do a T-shirt that goes with the single, plus Zizzy's artwork so fucking good I just had to do it. So hopefully if I sell all the t-shirts, I will break even, and then there comes streaming royalties, etc. Excuse me. I can't do that on an album. When I master an album, it costs me $2,000. Because the guy I get is the best. He's the best. I will sound like you can play my music next to Marilyn Manson's Nine Inch Nails, Korn, and it will stand up because Dave is at Stanford Audio in Melbourne. He's the best in the fucking business. So that's $2,000 to start with. Then there's artwork, which is about $500 on the album, and then there's all of this other shit too. Then you're printing. It's in the merch thing that I did, the merch video. But I'm looking at, before I've even released this thing, I'm easily $4,000 in the hole, maybe even $5,000 in the hole, and I am not going to recoup that money from a single or an EP. So I have to put out an album, and the problem you've got is that, because of the amount you're going to sell for what you're charging for a single, people aren't really that interested in a single, I've found. Whereas for my demographic seems to be interested in albums, because my demographic buy albums. You talk to someone else and they're going to go, dude, I'm killing this with singles. But my thing is that if you're doing a single on Bandcamp and you're only charging $2-3 for a single, a single, a B-side, and 2 remixes, for example, after Bandcamp's cut, after PayPal's cut, the percentage of that $5, you might only get $3.50 back. You've lost a quarter of that. But if you're selling an album, it might be $8 or $10, you're only losing 10, 15, 20%. Maybe 15%. These are the mathematics that go into it, which I believe is why. And if you're going to press vinyl, God, why are you pressing vinyl? Don't press vinyl. The amount of people who say they'll buy vinyl compared to the people who actually buy it is about 10 to 1. If you have 3,000 people saying, I'm going to buy your vinyl, print vinyl, and only print 300 or 250, which is the minimum. They don't buy vinyl. I don't know why, but people don't buy vinyl. Anyway. Well, not mine anyway. So, yeah, that's why I think it's important. And plus, if you do an album, you can turn up and you can play several songs off that album, and it's keeping stuff constantly going. And for God's sake, make sure what you do is the highest quality. Make sure it is the best fucking quality you can do. Don't fucking skimp on quality, because you will just disappear into that mundane, mediocre noise, that overwhelming tide of noise that is everywhere in this digital era. It's not something stunning that will stick out. When I'm mixing these fucking tracks, I will do 5 passes on the mixes. 5 fucking passes. Most people do 1 or 2 passes. I do 5. And it's driving me insane. But anyway, that's just me, because I know ultimately I'm paying to you bitches, and you guys have got a really fucking high standard. So, of course I want to hit it. Of course I want to do the best I can do. Speaking of people with a high standard, Eric. No, you do.
Oh, well, thank you, sir.
Thanks, having me rock by.
Karl, I got you beat. I do about 50 to 100 to 500 passes on mixing. Because I overthink everything and think everything's shit all the time.
We need therapy. Go on.
Interpretive dance, Eric.
I think a key word you said, Karl, was demographic, and our demographic like albums. I think people who are into the underground and dark music love albums. I love albums. I think we all do, and I also love vinyl. And I stick with I'm gonna buy your vinyl, and I get the vinyl. I won't press it because it is. I looked at prices for my last album under Eric Nidden. I was just like, I can't do this on vinyl. I can't afford it.
And because of COVID, it's currently a 5-month turnaround. 5 months.
Even longer. My buddy just put an album out digitally on Friday, and it's going to take him 12 months to get his vinyl. It's going to take him a year to get it out.
Jesus Christ.
It's insane. Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. Contributing to the conversation. With that being said, with us and our demographic, like I was saying, albums, I think people care about them. When you start hitting maybe more radio audience and you're popular enough to have 100,000 followers or something, I don't think they matter as much anymore. And one of the guitar player from Ghost said himself like 2 years ago that that's the way the music market was going. It's going towards singles and streaming. Mainstream audiences don't give a shit about CDs and albums as much anymore, although CDs are making a comeback, but they're more about streaming and they're more about a single. But you have to get to the point in your career or popular enough to actually just do that and have people buy that, where I mean, I'm nowhere near that, and I'm horrible at marketing and social media. But with that being said, I put a single out, and now I'm working on an EP to finish. Like, I'm not doing a full album with my new project because, well, I didn't get the songs together. I didn't like some of the ones, but I kind of went towards that route, and I'm going to put this on CD. But another key thing, too, with Kickstarters and stuff is, like Karl was saying with vinyl, like, covering your costs is almost irrelevant. With CDs, at least you can cover your cost, and even if you don't make a profit, you don't lose money, which maybe is a negative way to look at things, but that's how I look at it. It's like, I can't afford to lose money. If I can break even and figure this out, I'll be happy getting it out, breaking even. I'm babbling, but long story, in my opinion, the singles and stuff like that is more popular for more popular music, whereas our demographic and underground music, I think people still actually give a shit about actual albums.
All right, thank you. Alex, I see your hand. Let me just jump in real quick. I totally agree with everything you just said. And singles have always been more popular in the mainstream. That's why the Billboard Top 20 and fucking Countdown and Top of the Pops was all about singles. It was the single charts, not the album charts. Like, the album charts were there, but no one gave a shit. It's the hardcore fans that will buy an album. I totally agree on every single thing you said, and it is a reminder that bands need to be putting out singles or treating something like it's a single. Here's a video, go watch the video, now go stream it for free on Spotify, or go watch the video for free on YouTube, da-da-da-da-da. I agree. Alex, I'm sorry I interrupted you. The floor is yours.
No problem. The way I think the big major label artists and also the more relevant independent artists do is, I think, is like release single, like drip them, and then if you have maybe 50%, you release it as an album. I think they do it this way, and often the albums are structured in a way that it's like optimal for streaming. The albums will be very long, and usually the better tracks will be at the front, so that it keeps the listener more and more engaged. I personally hate it as a listener because then the album sort of dips off in quality, which I think you can see in Rammstein's latest album. But yeah, that's I think how the big guys do it.
All right, Julius, I see your hand. If I can now shoot my mouth off about that, yeah, totally fucking agree. An album to listen to that is a great example of that is Hunting High and Low by Aha. And what they do is they have hit, and then an album full of what the fuck is this shit. Like, seriously, you know, the saying all killer, no filler. That album's got a lot of filler in it. A lot of filler. But the killer tracks are just insane. This is what's really interesting about the streaming age, because once upon a time, there was this thing about the track order. The track order was this really wonderful thing you did at the end of the album where you go, I'm going to start with this weird song, track number, and then I'm going to hit them, and then I'm going to go somewhere cool, then I'm going to slam them. The single was always, track 4 was the single. Then you'd go track 7 was another single, and then another one later on, and you'd end on something weird, and there'd be a turnaround track in the middle, like, oh, what's this kind of thing. You got to really think about the layout of the tracks. That's gone now. And Rob, Alex, I'm keen to hear what you think about that. When I'm doing the way that the goddamn tracks appear now that's how it is. It's hit because people don't skip tracks. They go, fuck this band, I'm done. They don't even listen anymore. And you know, that's a really interesting idea, because when I did the album for do I have one here? No, I don't. When I did Ignorance Cartel, there was no text on it. Or there was a bit of text, but you don't need to, because it's not going to go in shops, because there aren't shops anymore. And I can do whatever I want on that album because it's not a digital thing. You know, in hindsight, what I should have done is I should have had a different track order. And I might do that on this new album. Because people, when they listen to a CD, there's a journey they want to go on. And I should do that. It's a nice thought. Thank you, Alex. And then what's on fucking Spotify is it's the Wham Bam Thank You Man streamer. Thank you. But the only problem with that is that track order also appears on Apple Play and all that shit as well. That's the only hang up. So if somebody actually buys it off Amazon or whatever, they're stuck with the Spotify Wham Bam Thank You Ma'am fucking playlist. God. Alright, Julius, thank you for letting me interrupt you. I want to hear your words.
I think it's actually pretty important to release singles then and when, to just keep the momentum up and stay visible. Doesn't matter if it's in advance of an album or in hindsight of an album, to practically pimp what you released. So yeah.
Thanks, mate. Rob, I'm looking forward to hearing your wisdom.
Yeah, so Interpretive Dance 103. I find that the changing nature of the music industry for the listener is, for me, it's a double-edged sword. We were able to Bluetooth the shit out of everything to anywhere, wherever we go in our lives now. But the drawback is we're losing substance. We're losing the proximity to the artist. It's a copy of a copy of a copy, I feel. And in the old days, you went to the concert. That was the ultimate experience, was going to the concert. And if you couldn't go to the concert, then Channel 7 televised a live concert on a Saturday night, and everyone rushed to their stereo receiver and tuned in on FM to get the full stereo sound through their home stereo system with the TV. So you kind of felt like you were there and you were loving it and everyone was smiling, and it was the 80s. Then we got the CDs, which were great quality as well, but you didn't have the visual interaction. So for me, the backup to going to a concert was using a DVD to turn up the volume and have a big screen view of the concert and really enjoy surround sound or whatever the hell technology was cool in the 90s. Now that we're getting into this stream age, I feel like latency is a bugbear. I feel like compression on YouTube is a bugbear. I feel like that we're deteriorating the quality of the performance through so many different streaming tools and methods that we're losing our contact with the original artist, especially with less concerts. And I like playing vinyl because of its dynamic range. You don't get that on the digital formats necessarily. It's been compressed to shit. But I like 96 kilohertz too. If somebody can send me the file, I'll play it at home and I won't stream it because I'm getting totally unadulterated quality, and that's good. But how is that getting delivered to the artists the listeners who are hardcore? How do we get that today? And is it HD 4K through Vimeo and you download it first? I don't think people are doing that because they don't have the hard disk space. So they've got to take an average version that's been compressed and diluted and listen to that and be content. And I don't think that people want to pay for that. I don't think they want to pay to listen to a compromised version. I think they only want to pay for a direct from the artist highest quality version. And I'm frustrated these days because I can't seem to find that source. You know, I get a DAT tape of a concert, and I really enjoy playing that DAT tape because it's direct from the concert. It's not compressed in any way, but there's no visual. So I kind of feel like the industry needs to go eBay DVD nuts and just everyone publish everything on DVD again, because you could set up your sound system at home, you could crank it up full volume, you could get the visuals, and you would get the special effects and the outtakes and all the good content that you would get at a concert, but you can't now. And that's just my opinion. Is I feel like we're overrun with audio on demand, and everyone wants everything for free and fast, and you lose quality because of that. That's just my view.
I'll just interact real quick. Thank you. Guys, I see your hands. So as Tanner just said in the comments, we can... oh, there's something really good. Someone just said something really good on Twitch, which I'll look at in a sec. You can download 96K FLACs on Bandcamp. The liar who runs Basement Lab, who duplicates videotapes, is saying that VHS is making a legitimate comeback. And now he's saying that DVDs are also doing that as well. So all is not lost. Maybe we'll get back into authoring DVDs. I do enjoy the extras on a DVD, but it's a good thing. I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to let Grim speak.
I was about to say, on that note, yeah, like streaming is good until it's not. Like I have a lot of like audio breakage and a lot of Bluetooth issues and things that drive me up the fucking wall. So I get to a point where I'm like, I just want to listen to an album wire to wire, or I want to watch that DVD, or I think, you know, Zoog's got an awesome idea with the USB when he did the spit pills. You know, there's a shitload of content on a USB. But I also wanted to circle back. Zoog, you had brought something up about this little gem here.
Bam!
And I didn't know if
there
you
it
ever
is.
finished what you were talking about with the Ignorance Cartel.
It's got no text on the cover, except the Japanese.
Yeah.
And
Yes, sir.
so that was the point of that, is that I don't, because the rules for putting shit on iTunes and on Apple Play, it's bullshit. Like, the fucking rules are so insane. Oh, it drives me nuts. But, you know, with that, I can do whatever I want. So anyway, that was my point, is that the artwork's slightly different. Thank you. Alex, what you got?
Yes, sir.
Just to elaborate Rob's point, I think some techno artists do like video recordings of their live sets and upload them to Bandcamp. You can sort of embed video or like external files into Bandcamp and give it to people who purchase your album. Another person also did like the data for the synthesizers they use and gave them as an extra on their album. So people could put it into their into their synthesizer and sort of play through the patterns. That's what I saw people do.
That's great. I love that.
And the cool thing is that you can put all the uncensored stuff on that as well. Like if you push out a DVD, you can put your naked performances on that, and people will love that shit.
Yeah, you're out of the way. That's what we did on the VHS. There was no. It's got Naked Crows on that one, because there's no interference from on the great algorithm.
And I'm still paying for therapy for that thing.
Yeah, I know, man. Naked Crows, Crowdo. It's pretty hard. Does anybody have anything else they want to add, or are we going to wrap this madness up and stream on over to right on over to MTV TV? Anybody else? Anybody else? Anybody else? No, we're done. All right. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Just before you do, I want to pimp my shit again. Here I go, pimping my shit again. Yay for this pimpage. So, hold on. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Don't rush me. Jesus. Boom.
That's what somebody said.
I know, my whole life. So this Mayhem is available today. The single only will be preing very shortly, but everything will be live and hip and happening on Bandcamp Friday, which is this Friday, September 3rd. So this is Angelspit's new single, Don't Know Zero, featuring Emmy from Miss Ballistic and George from Angelspit / Meteorize playing guitars. And this is the first single off the new album, and it's got an exclusive track. And it's nuts, and there's also 9 other remixes, and they're all different remixes from different tracks on the album. It's not all the same fucking track. So go check that shit out. It's on Etsy, and it's going to be on Bandcamp very fucking soon. So this time next week, come and join us, because it's always bloody awesome here on Twitch. And I want to thank everybody who was in Twitch, because there was some really good comments going on. I was really enjoying it. See you next Sunday. And let's zoom to MTV. And Brian's on today. We got Space Couch today. Great. Space Couch is on. So,
Space Couch with Stephen Archer today.
with Brian and Steve. So we're going to be going to MTV TV. And then check out Brian and Steve on Space Couch. But let's raid. Bye. See you next week. Bye. 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 Bye.